Jonathan, what do we have for tech history?
Tech history for June 1st through the 6th.
That's right.
And we're starting with the day the music industry changed forever.
What happened?
1999.
Napster. Do you remember Napster?
Oh, yeah.
Be careful what you say. You're being recorded.
There was a lot of illegal stuff happening.
That's right. So Napster was the gun that claimed not to be illegal. So what they said is like, hey, all we're doing is just creating the software. What we're doing is not illegal at all. And the music industry is like, they're like, no, what you're creating is illegal. And somehow or other, they didn't necessarily lose in court, but they didn't have the legal backing to be able to fight the lawsuit that was slapped on them. So basically they just got inundated with legal bills and they couldn't produce it anymore. They tried to make it a company, but it's like it was too much money to continue to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just couldn't. And so yeah, they had to shut down the company. But it wasn't because they lost. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the financial backing for it to go. It's almost like guns, right? I think guns are a lot more dangerous than Napster. But why is there so much backing on guns?
Yeah,
and is because of the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to protect our country. So Napster didn't have any, even though guns are dangerous. I mean, we know that, guns are used for bad things, right? But they're also used for good things. Where Napster was just financially draining the music industry, because if one person bought a song and then shared it on Napster, that means that there was one song sale. Even though everybody was sharing it, that didn't matter because that one person is the one who shared it. And that's how a lot of the music was getting around when Napster was around. And so, yeah, but if they would have had financial backing, they would have still been around, but unfortunately they inundated them in lawsuits.
Yeah.
So cool.
All right.
What else
Next, we have on June 2nd, U.S. Soft lands on the moon.
Interesting.
They named it Soft.
Why did they name it Soft? Oh, because they did a soft land.
Oh, okay.
I guess they didn't crash into the planet or into the moon. Yeah, you see. All the other ones had hard landings.
That's funny.
Or crash landings. This is kind of cool. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next, we have on June 3rd. Would you like to play a game? Sounds like Saw.
Oh, I remember this movie. Do you remember the movie War Games?
No.
Oh my gosh.
1983.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing about the internet, right? There was a communication protocol prior to the World Wide Web being introduced in 1991 by Mr. Tim Berners-Lee, right? Tim Berners-Lee came up with HTML, and someone close to him came up with CSS. So HTML, just so that people who missed our birthday segment, HTML is the data that's being displayed. So for example, this title, this the name of the author, these like buttons, the share button, this image, and this paragraph here, right?
Mhm.
This is all data that's being displayed. So this is all what you would call HTML. But the way that you style it, so in order to make this, a title a little bit bigger, the font's bigger than the rest of the fonts, is through CSS. And so through CSS, you're able to style it. So it gives it the style and whatnot. Well, but that communicating from one computer to another existed back in, I want to say that it existed back in the late 60s with, I believe it was called ARPANET or ARPNET or something like that. And it's not AARP for those that are retiring. Okay. It was called ARPNET or ARPANET. I forget exactly what it was called. So in 1983, it's funny how Hollywood they have access to so much information, and they can write movies that kind of talk about the future, right? And eventually it comes up. Take, for example, Star Trek. Lieutenant Hura or Huri, she had the earpiece in Star Trek.
Mhm.
They also had the handheld devices. They also had the tablets in Star Trek, and now what do we have? We have the portable devices. We have the tablets, we have all this, technology that was imagined back in the 60s and 70s. So the same thing happened in 1983 with this ARPANET, which was a communication. I believe that the communication was funded by the government. And again, I could be completely wrong. I believe that it was funded by the government, but it was used by the universities to be able to share information. So just the way you go to Google today,
Mhm.
there was a way to search back then, through different communication networks that connected the universities. So, and again, this is the way I think it worked. And so in 1983, they came up with this movie called War Games. And what they had a machine that had artificial intelligence, and it learned to play tic-tac-toe. And it used tic-tac-toe to learn how to fight a war. And so the whole moral of the story is that the reason they had the machine learn tic-tac-toe is to understand the fact that you could never win in tic-tac-toe. There was always somewhere where if two tic-tac-toe, good tic-tac-toe players would play, nobody would ever win. And that was the whole moral of the story, is that in a war, no one ever wins.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
God, I'm dating myself here. I gotta stop with these stories. But yeah, it's a really interesting movie. It I think a lot of the conspiracies of AI, artificial intelligence and computers, um, computers becoming aware, all that stems from things in Hollywood, right?
Mhm.
When in reality, a computer needs to be programmed, and it can't be any smarter than the person who programmed it. So that's kind of where that was at.
Unless it was built by a super person, intelligent person.
Einstein, yeah, Einstein.
All right. Next, we have June 4th, VHS introduced to America.
What do you remember about VHS, Jonathan?
I remember watching them on repeat because I just rewind them and watch movies again. That's all I know about them.
You would sit there and hit the rewind, go take a bathroom break, come back, and by the time you came back, the movie was playing, huh?
Yep.
What was the one movie that you would watch over and over and over?
um, I feel like it was like The Land Before Times, or like, I don't know, whatever Disney movie we had.
I think every kid or every person your age has that one Disney movie that they watched over and over.
Yeah.
For some, it was probably Little Mermaid. For others, All Dogs Go to Heaven. I bet you, isn't that Gerard's, your brother? Isn't it All Dogs Go to Heaven?
I think so. Something like that.
Yeah, I want to say that too. But yeah, the VHS. We had a whole collection for you guys, and I don't think there was. I mean, I think everybody had a collection of VHS. But yeah, cool. What's next?
Next, we have on June 5th, the Apple II enters the market.
Holy smokes!
Wow, is that the monitor?
What the heck? This thing looks clunky,
It
to say the least.
looks like a typewriter.
Yeah. Interesting. A 1 megahertz MOS 6502 processor. 1 megahertz.
One.
Isn't 1 megahertz like 1 million hertz?
Yeah.
Now they have gigahertz and they have like multiple processors within the processor. It had a built-in basic programming environment, expandable 4K to 48K. What?
Wow, that's a lot of memory.
Whoever needed more than 48K?
Who is storing more than 5 pictures?
No. A picture nowadays is like 1 megapixel. That's like 1 megabyte. Wow, that's crazy. I don't remember that. I don't think I was around. Yeah, I was around. Oh, this is 1977.
Wow.
Man, I was 8 years old. That's crazy. That's how long Apple's been around, huh?
They've been around for a while, man.
That's pretty cool.
All right, next we have on June 6th, Tetris is born.
Do you remember this game?
Oh, yeah. Old school Tetris.
Man, that is really old. I wonder what this is on. Oh, this is from the USSR. Russia came up with this game.
This is how I became an excellent packer. When
An
you have
excellent hacker?
no packer, when you have to pack things in a small space.
Oh.
When your Tetris skills come in handy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, this was a great bathroom game. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, another one on June 6th. The Mac gets Intel inside.
Oh, this is when PowerPC came out. So Mac, for the longest time, had their own processors. And what happened was that I guess at one point, they decided to put the Pentium processor in their machines. So like a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually install Windows on a Mac product because it's running regular PC hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the thing, that for the longest time, their hardware was proprietary and you couldn't install anything but the Apple operating system. And so when PowerPC came out, you can install, they came up with this thing called, they called it Boot Camp. And Boot Camp allowed you to run both Mac and Windows side by side. You could only boot into one or the other, but you were able to install both operating systems on the same hard drive. And when you turned it on, you make a decision. Do you want to go into Windows or do you want to go into Mac? and so you can do one or the other. And so PowerPC was the one that allowed for them to be able to do that. And then people started creating what they call Hackintosh machines, because they would go and build their own PC and then install the operating system, because the operating system ran on a regular PC hardware. So they started calling them Hackintosh.
Cool.
But eventually, Apple made it more and more difficult for you to be able to do it. And there is still a way to do it, but it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, it's like you got to jump through hoops with fire in order to get all that to work. So cool.
All right.
Interesting stuff.
Again, on June 6th, we have Palm pre-released. Whoa.
So the guy who invented or came up with the Palm released something around his birthday, because didn't we just talk about this guy?
Yeah, we just talked about him.
His birthday, what was his birthday? Let me see. His name's Todd Cochrane. Oh, no. He's the voice of the first podcast.
Jeff Hawkins.
Jeff Hawkins, founder of Palm. And he came up right around his birthday. When was his birthday?
The first.
So they were probably late. He probably wanted to do it on his birthday. He was probably telling his team, come on, let this be my birthday present. They're like, yeah, we're going to give it to you for your birthday, but it's going to be a late birthday gift. Just like most deadlines are missed, this is what happened to this. Yeah, they tried to come up with the phone, and I think, yeah, they tried to put it on the Linux-based Palm Web OS. I don't know. I think the original Palm came up with its own operating system. And so when they had to switch it over to a Linux-based operating system, they kind of lost a lot of their functionality. But what's interesting about this is that the Palm Pre wasn't that successful in comparison to the Symbian operating system, which is what most flip phones were using. Mm-hmm. Most flip phones were using the Symbian operating system. And then, what was the other one? BlackBerry. BlackBerry had its own operating system with its own secure communication. And then Palm came up with the Linux base, and they weren't as successful as the Symbian or the BlackBerry. But I think what Google did is that they looked at this and they said, wait a second, we can do something with this. And they came up with the Android.
Oh, cool.
Because Android is somewhat of a Linux-based operating system. It's heavily modified for phone purposes. But they modified it to be able to run the Android system. So I have a feeling, and I could be completely off on this, and this is just a speculation, is that they saw potential in this. They're like, there's potential in what they just did. Mm-hmm. And they took the idea of the Apple Store and they created their Google Store.
Oh, and really?
I'm thinking that's what happened. I mean, what other way would there be? Because iPhone came out first, right?
Yeah.
Before Android?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of took the ideas from all these different, it's like, we need secure communication. So, they came up with that. But they took that from another idea. I don't think they stole the technology. I'm not saying that they stole the technology, but they took the idea. Just like Tesla came up with the, battery operated car. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, we can improve on the car and it doesn't have to use gas, It just runs on battery. But the car works the same. The same thing with all the ideas that the Palm Pre had. Google kind of looked at it and they're like, hey, wait a second, there's some good stuff here. Let's build on that. And so they kind of went on that. So I'm speculating. Who knows? We could be completely wrong about this. So that's cool.
That's all we have in tech history this week.
All right. Until next time. Cheers.